Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 2 of our KHS 110 class, Strategies for Wellness. We will be talking about physical dimension of wellness this week. So get yourself comfortable. I do have a few interactive opportunities with this PowerPoint, so if you want to have a pen or pencil and a piece of paper, you certainly can. But let's dive straight in to our physical wellness dimension. What do you think of when you hear the word physical wellness? Lots of people that I talk to in my personal training and group fitness classes say it's the way my body looks or the way my body operates or it's exercise or physical activity. Those are definitely parts of physical wellness. However, I like to use this comprehensive definition from 2018 that covers other components as well. Your physical wellness is not limited to exercise. It includes healthy eating, proactively taking care of any medical issues that arrive, and maintaining healthy daily practices. We definitely want our bodies to be able to support us through decades and decades of life. So that includes things like taking care of our body physically by exercising, but also getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, making sure that we are keeping ourselves safe. And if we do get injured, tending to those injuries right away. So physical wellness, yes, may be the idea of quote unquote getting in shape or being in shape, but there are more components to physical wellness than just what we see outwardly with our body. Physical wellness can have a lot of synonyms or other words that get used interchangeably. On this slide, I've indicated 3 different words or phrases that you might hear that are synonymous with physical wellness. You can go ahead and pause the PowerPoint and write down your own definitions of the words physical activity, exercise, and physical fitness. So think for a couple of minutes, what do each of those mean to you? And maybe if you have some examples, you can write those down as well. The first definition we'll dive into is physical activity. Physical activity is any bodily movement that's produced by your skeletal muscles that results in energy expenditure. Physical activity is performed to sustain life, and it can also be leisure time physical activities. So physical activity, the act of walking to the garage to get into your car would be considered physical activity. The act of walking to the mailbox to retrieve your mail, bicycling to work or to class, mowing the lawn, gardening, going down the stairs to get to your laundry. Those are all examples of physical activity. Your body is moving in concert, in tandem. Your body is propelling you somewhere. You are using energy to have your body move. That is considered physical activity. So it might be some leisure time activities like bowling or pickleball or taking a walk with the dog or snowshoeing. Those are all examples of physical activity, but physical activity itself is any bodily movement that is produced by the muscles that causes an expenditure of energy. I know you've probably stayed awake at night wondering, how much physical activity should I be getting? Well, the Center for Disease Control, or the CDC, has recommendations for adults over the age of 18 who don't have any underlying health conditions. And those recommendations are shown here on this slide. They have 3 different examples of how you can achieve those minimums. Example number 1 is 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity. So spreading out that 150 minutes throughout the week, and then at least 2 days of muscle strengthening activities. That's one way to get in your minutes for the week. Example 2 would be fewer minutes, 75 minutes, but more intense or more vigorous aerobic activity, and 2 or more days of muscle strengthening activities. The third example is a mix and match of moderate and vigorous activity for 2 days a week or more, and then 2 days a week or more of muscle strengthening activities. So the next slide will show us some examples of how we might reach those recommended numbers from the CDC. A suggested plan for somebody who wants to achieve 150 minutes of aerobic activity and 2 days of muscle strengthening exercises might look like this. It's spread out throughout 7 days. So for some people, that might be a challenge to get movement in for all 7 days. However, you do see that the time limits or the time dedicated is on the shorter end of things. And this includes a brisk walk 5 days a week and some type of weight training 2 days a week. Now, could you do a 60-minute walk on Sunday, take Monday off, and then spread your time through the rest of the week? You sure could. This is just one suggestion of how to incorporate 150 minutes of cardiovascular activity plus 2 days of strength training. A second suggestion would be for someone who is perhaps training or exercising at a little higher rate, a little higher intensity movement, or perhaps they don't have as much free time to be able to dedicate to exercise. So this specific calendar takes a look at some higher intensity movement, and in this case it's jogging, and then that's coupled with weight training. So 3 days a week here, 4 days a week, 3 days a week of cardiovascular, 2 days a week of strength, mixing and matching, but keeping in mind that the intensity is a little higher. This picture shows jogging, but jogging could turn into cross-country skiing or swimming or mountain climbing, but the importance here is that the intensity is a little bit higher. We will talk about calculating intensity in one of our next slides. This third example is what I gravitate to, and I would think that many people who are wanting to be in an exercise routine might find this the most enjoyable because you have some unpredictability or some differences in your exercise every day, and it's a mix and match pattern that might work for you. So this includes moderate intensity, but then also some higher intensity cardiovascular exercise plus your weight training sprinkled in. So currently, I would call myself a 7-day per week physical activity person. I get a walk in, I am in my yard, I am up and moving and not sedentary for many, many hours. However, I wouldn't say that I'm doing vigorous activity every day of the week. I enjoy my circuit training, HIIT workouts, and my hill runs, but then there's some days that I just enjoy a yoga class or a simple walk around the block or a walk up to the grocery store to get some ice cream. So I try in my own life to have a mix and match of strength training, some lower intensity cardiovascular exercise, and then some higher intensity exercise as well. Not only does that keep my body feeling fresh, it keeps my mind guessing, but it adds to the enjoyment of spreading my physical activity out throughout the week as well. If you're in this class and you haven't done much physical activity previously, hopefully this class is inspiring you. And the 150 minutes a week, if you break it down into 5 days, that's 30 minutes a day. So hopefully it doesn't feel quite so overwhelming. Or maybe you're a person who's already doing quite a bit of exercise and you have been thinking to yourself, my exercise is moderate, maybe it's time for me to go a little higher intensity, or maybe it's time for me to add a few more minutes, or maybe it's time for me to add some strength training, or maybe it's time for me to add some aerobic training. Those examples from the Centers for Disease Control are just a few suggestions on ways you can mix and match to achieve that 150-minute goal with 2 days a week of strength training. If you do want to exercise or have physical activity, it can be a question of, well, how intense should I do it? Is a walk going to cut it for me? I encourage a lot of my personal training clients to just start with walking. Many people are more sedentary than they even think that they are, and to do half-hour walk can tire them out and fatigue them, but walking is a great, I would call it a gateway exercise to get you into more physical activity. You don't need any other equipment. You can do it in many different places, and you can definitely get your heart rate up and clear your mind at the same time. So walking is a great way to get started. When you're ready to get into something a little heavier, there's some different ways that you can take a look at checking in with your intensity. The talk test, using a rate of perceived exertion, and using heart rate measurements. So the talk test is just what it says. Can you talk while you're exercising? If you're on the elliptical and you are having the intensity at 20 and the ramp is at 25 and you are pushing and pulling on those arm handles as hard as you can, and somebody comes up to you and asks you a question and you can't talk because you're out of breath, that intensity might be too high. There's a time and place for higher intensity exercises. However, if you are unable to talk for two or three sentences in a row without being out of breath, I would encourage you to think a little bit more about the intensity of your movement. So walking and talking, or bicycling and talking, or running and talking, or playing tennis and talking are all going to be great ways to make sure you're staying moderate to moderately high intensity. If you can sing the whole alphabet and the whole Star Spangled Banner without having to take a breath, then maybe increase your intensity just a little bit. But use the talk test as a way for you to see, am I being able to meet the oxygen demands that my body is needing right now? Rate of perceived exertion is also a nice subjective way to measure exercise intensity. This is used in a lot of laboratory tests, but this can also be used with someone who perhaps isn't familiar with the way their body responds to exercise. This scale is a 10-point scale, and it just asks somebody to rate how they're feeling. Are you feel like you can exercise for a long period? Are you able to talk? Are you uncomfortable? Is it difficult to maintain this intensity? You can have a scale with you yourself and take a look at it, or this could be with a partner if you're exercising with somebody. And if they're saying, Jen, I'm at an 8 out of 10. I don't think I can continue much longer. That's maybe a sign to slow down a little bit. And again, there might be times when you want to be exercising up in the 7, 8, 9 scale, but that would be some higher intensity exercises when you have progressed and are ready for that. So most exercise, you want to be in between a 4 and a 6 or a 4 and a 7. So you feel like you can do it for a while, you're out of breath, you're sweaty, you're warm, but your body's moving and it's moving efficiently. That's how you're going to know that you're in that kind of moderate intensity scale. And then target heart rate is a little more scientific or calculated way to check exercise intensity. A simple equation of 220 minus your age will give you an approximate maximum heart rate. So 220 minus, say you're 30 years old, 190 beats per minute. Theoretically, that is the highest that your heart can beat. For exercise intensities, we want to exercise, if you're at a moderate intensity, between 64 and 76% of that estimated max. And for more intense exercise, in between 77% and 93%. So our next slide, you'll be able to do some calculations with me. Target heart rate is going to be helpful if somebody has a wearable device that takes their heart rate, if they're wearing a heart rate monitor, or if they're on a machine at a fitness center where you have handrails to be able to hold on to heart rate. This is not cut and dry and applicable for everybody. In fact, the more you train or the more physically or cardiovascularly fit you are, this might not work for you. But if you are part of the general population and just starting out, using your target heart rate and heart rate ranges can be a great way to check your exercise intensity. So let's practice. Let's say we have a 30-year-old person. Their estimated heart rate max is 220 minus 30, which is 190 beats per minute. If you've ever had your heart rate at 190 beats per minute, you'll know that it's hard to maintain it for very long without having to stop. So if we have somebody who wants to exercise at a moderate level or moderate range, we would want to encourage them to exercise in between 122 beats per minute and 145 beats per minute. And again, if you go up to 147, doesn't mean that all of a sudden you've passed your moderate and you're into your high, but that would be considered a moderate heart rate category for exercise intensity. On the higher end, 146 to 176, 177 would be considered higher intensity exercise. So it's helpful to wear a heart rate monitor or a watch when you're walking or running or rollerblading or swimming and seeing for yourself, oh, my heart rate's at, 152. Okay, according to my heart rate max, I'm hanging out in the high category. So that might mean I'll only be able to do this for 20 minutes. Maybe I want to slow down a little bit. Or if you've been going for a walk every day and your heart rate's on the low end, 125, and you say, you know what, I'm feeling really good. I think I want to try to boost that heart rate up a little bit more. Perhaps you're on a treadmill and you can add some incline, or you can find a hill, or you can walk a little bit faster. Those are ways to be able to get that target heart rate up. Again, this isn't a perfect science. I'll use myself as an example. Right now, I'm a 42-year-old woman, and my estimated max heart rate is actually lower than some of my ranges or thresholds. So I do a lot of physical activity myself, and I can operate at a pretty high heart rate for a pretty long time. So if I'm going for a run for 45 minutes, my heart rate will get up to 168, 170, which according to my age calculated would be really far on the high end, and it would seem like, how the heck can she maintain that for that long? But my body's conditioned, and it's just some genetic differences and some body differences, but I can operate at that high level for a longer period of time. So if I'm training, those heart rate ranges might fluctuate or be off a little bit for me. So I wouldn't want to plan all my training only around my heart rate. I would want to use things like my rate of perceived exertion. You can do this now for yourself. So take your age, and if you're 30 years old, lucky you, it's already been completed, but take 220 minus your age, and then you'll get your maximum heart rate. And then on your handy dandy handheld computer or calculator, you can put 0.64 times 190, or multiplied by 190, or whatever your maximum heart rate is. That'll give you the two ends of your moderate range and the two ends of your high range. And then I would encourage you to find a way to take your heart rate, even if it's taking your heart rate manually on your wrist or on your neck right after some exercise, and see to yourself, hey, have I been exercising light or moderate or high? I asked you to define physical activity, exercise, and physical fitness. And I've been using these words interchangeably, and a lot of people do use them interchangeably. However, exercise does have its own definition. It is a subcategory of physical activity. If you remember, physical activity was any large body movement that produces energy and your skeletal muscles have you moving. So physical activity is things like walking. It's things like walking the dog and mowing the lawn and grocery shopping and washing dishes. Physical activity is the kind of top umbrella of movement. Within physical activity, we have exercise. Exercise is going to be physical activity that is planned, structured, repetitive, and you do it for a purpose. You exercise because you want to lose weight or gain strength or improve your posture or compete in a 5K or play a sport. So physical activity that has a plan to it, that is purposeful, that is what exercise is considered. If I wake up in the morning and I say to myself, today I am going to run for 60 minutes because I want to improve my cardiovascular fitness, or I'm going to run for 60 minutes because I am training for the Twin Cities Marathon that's coming up later this fall, that would be considered exercise. If I got out of bed and the sun was shining and it was not windy, and I was like, I'm going to ride my bike around the lake because the day is so lovely, that would be more on the physical activity side of things. So exercise is planned, it's purposeful. The goal of exercise is because you want to maintain or improve some part of your physical fitness. So think about some examples of exercise. You can write them down if you want to. When I think of things like exercise, I think of group fitness classes. So Zumba class or step aerobics or a strength training class. People are coming to a fitness center to be in a structured class. It's planned. Their goal is to get stronger or to burn calories or to work up a sweat. Group fitness classes are a great example of exercise. Running could be exercise, but it also could be a leisure time physical activity. Sports can certainly be exercise, but can also be a leisure time physical activity. So you can see how the line kind of blurs here between physical activity and exercise. But the biggest difference is that exercise is planned, it's purposeful. You are doing it because you're wanting to improve a component of physical fitness. Just what are these components of physical fitness? When I say physically fit, what does that mean? I have a pet peeve with the phrase get in shape or be in shape because square is a shape, so is a rhombus, so is an octagon. So when people tell me, I want to get in shape, I need to get back in shape, I always say, well, what does that mean to you? Let's operationally define that, right? So physical fitness is components that make up your physical being, and it's categorized. This definition from the American College of Sports Medicine is the ability for you to do daily activities with vigor. So can you get up off the couch and feel good and pick up your boxes from the floor and climb up and down the stairs and balance on one foot? All these components that help make us the people that we are, but then also um, having a lower risk for certain types of diseases. So physical fitness, having a high level of physical fitness also translates into less concerns about things like chronic diseases like heart disease and diabetes and metabolic disease and things like that. So the American College of Sports Medicine has defined physical fitness as you see it on the chart here, or excuse me, on the slide here, and there's 5 components to physical fitness: cardiorespiratory endurance, muscular strength, muscular endurance, body composition, and flexibility. So when we are exercising, our goal is to improve one or more of these components of physical fitness is measured in different ways. Norms have been set, and many of these norms have been set decades ago through scientific studies by different reputable fitness or health industry organizations. And these norms serve as a baseline for us to notice where we're at compared to other people in our age and gender categories, maybe provide a little bit of motivation, but also help to see, hey, what's the state of the population at this moment? So there are norms from places like the American College of Sports Medicine, Mayo Clinic, the AHA, the Cooper Institute, which does a lot of law enforcement training, and then the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So I know I have a lot of different ages of people watching this, listening to this PowerPoint, but perhaps you remember and were in school when they had the presidential challenge for your physical education classes. For me, we did the shuttle run, we did the long jump, we did the mile run, we did sit-ups and push-ups. The girls did a flexed arm hang while the boys did pull-ups. We did a wall sit, and that was my favorite class because I was very competitive and I was pretty good at most of that stuff. So I loved getting the exceptional category or the highly above average category. For some people, that might have been their nightmare in school, but that was one way to measure physical fitness. So let's take a glance at all the different components of physical fitness, how they might be measured, and how you could measure them in the comfort of your own home. Cardiorespiratory endurance is the component of physical fitness I think that most people think about when they say, I want to get in shape, or they think about going to the gym, and it's either lifting weights or burning calories, right? Getting your cardio in. So cardiorespiratory endurance is going to be, how do your heart and lungs function and function efficiently or optimally to allow you to have large body movements for a long extended period of time. Swimming, running, cross-country skiing, rollerblading, bicycling, all of those components of activity, all of those activities that take large body coordination and a high uptake of oxygen. How good is your body at taking in that oxygen, getting it to the muscles, and having your energy change happen? If you take more classes in kinesiology, like our exercise physiology class, you will learn much more about how the energy systems are used. This is just a high-level overview, but cardiorespiratory endurance really is, how fast can you run a mile? That's one way to look at it. So the gold standard for measuring cardiorespiratory endurance would be measuring your VO2 max, and that can be on a treadmill or a bicycle. And with those tests, it is a progressive test where you start off slow and the incline goes up and the speed goes up, or the gears go up on the bike, and you go until you can't go anymore. You go until your lungs are burning and you are not quite sure if your eyes are open or closed. They are challenging tests, but they are the most accurate for estimating your VO2 max. Most people don't have access to that, nor is that an appropriate protocol for them. So a submax test can be substituted. So for you at home right now, you could try the 1.5 mile walk run test. If you have a way to measure out 1.5 miles and it needs to be close to 1.5 miles, it can't be a mile or 1.75 miles, it really needs to be close to 1.5 miles. You can walk/run that as quickly as you can. Time yourself, see if you can maybe beat one of these rankings down here. So this would be a way for you to not only set a baseline for yourself, but then also see any improvements. Of course, before you do any of these protocols, make sure that you have clearance from your doctor and that you're feeling good and that you don't have any concerns about injuries. Heart rate. We've already talked about it being used for estimating exercise intensity, but it can also tell us a lot about our capacity for physical fitness and our current state of physical fitness with our resting heart rate. In general, the lower your resting heart rate, the better your fitness level. If you are on some medications, that might skew the data, it might have your heart rate artificially low or artificially high. So it's not always, again, a number one 100% complete for you to take a resting heart rate, but resting heart rate can demonstrate that you've made some gains in physical fitness. So it's best to take your resting heart rate while lying in bed, either before you go to sleep or when you wake up in the morning, not when you wake up to an alarm and are panicked, but when you wake up naturally. You can take your heart rate with your 3 fingers on the outside of the thumb side of your wrist, or you can take it on your neck and you can count it for a full minute. Some people, some athletes who are very high class athletes have had resting heart rates in the low 40s. The average, and I don't even want to say average, but most people, their heart rate's going to be, 68 beats per minute maybe, or 74 or 81. If your heart rate is always at 100 beats per minute, that might be a flag for some concern. But I don't want to give you an average because I don't want you to worry that you're not average or not normal. However, taking your resting heart rate and then adding exercise or physical activity to your routine, taking that resting heart rate again 4 weeks later and then 4 weeks later after that, you will notice that your resting heart rate drops. Your heart gets more efficient at pumping that volume of blood out to your body. And you've been conditioned through your cardiovascular fitness, running, cycling, swimming, skiing, playing sports, lifting weights even, to bring that resting heart rate down. So to me, this is a fascinating way to check in with your fitness. It can also be a way to clue you in that you are overtraining. So perhaps your heart rate does race and it doesn't seem to drop after exercise. That can be a sign that your body is overtrained and that you need to take a step back because it's going to hit the skids pretty soon. So heart rate can be something you can track in the mornings. A lot of people now have their heart rate constantly on their wrist, so it would be an easy way for you to track that to see how that changes based on adding exercise. Cardiorespiratory or cardiovascular fitness is the first component of our physical fitness. The second components are muscular strength and muscular endurance. So strength and endurance are two different things, and in a well-rounded exercise plan, we are working on both things. You can measure muscular strength and muscular endurance with dynamic measurements or isokinetic measurements. So for instance, if you want to measure strength, it would be things like a 1 repetition squat, deadlift, or bench press. Those are pretty typical measurements of some functional strength or some dynamic strength. Some estimated 1 rep max tests. There's calculations out on the interwebs that say, if you can do 10 push-ups in X amount of time, here would be your estimated 1 rep max. Or if you can do 3 squats at 185 pounds with good form, here would be your estimated 1 rep max. So sometimes a 1 repetition max is not a safe or effective measuring tool for people, especially if your goal isn't to lift really heavy weights. So you might want to take a look at doing an estimated max test or possibly an endurance test, like a push-up test, a wall sit, a plank, a crunch test. There's positives and negatives, pros and cons to all of these tests, but what I like about them is at least it gets you a baseline. So perhaps you want to say, I'm going to see how many push-ups I can do on my knees without stopping. You do that today, you get 13. Then in 4 weeks, come back, do that exact same test. Maybe you get 19 or 20. You can see that progression there. When we talk about muscular strength, that does not mean how big are your muscles, not the size of your muscles, but how much force can they exert for a short period of time. So, can you hop quickly? Can you push something really fast? Can you dive or jump or run for 8 seconds? Can you throw a shot put? Can you tackle in football? That is our muscular strength. Can you lift up a refrigerator and move it? That's really quick bursts of energy for a very short period of time. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about strength. So people might have huge muscles, but they might not be strong. So don't always equate size with strength. Same thing goes for endurance. Endurance also does not mean the size of your muscles, but how long can they work until fatigue. Can you do 100 burpees in a row? No, I cannot. Can you run for 4 miles without your legs feeling like they're going to fall off? Can you hold a plank for a minute and a half? Can you do 200 walking lunges without stopping? That's going to be an example of endurance. Can those muscles last for a long period of time? Can you sustain those repeated contractions over a long period of time without quick fatigue? Here's a chart of a push-up to exhaustion test. You can see that there's categories for men and categories for women, and then also based on your age. If you are a woman, you do need to do a kneeling push-up for this test, otherwise your numbers aren't going to be accurate. And men need to do a full push-up that would be coming down till your elbows are bent and your chest and hips are in line. Push yourself right back up. So I'm a woman in the 40 to 49 category. I sure as heck hope that I can do 39 kneeling push-ups, although I haven't tested myself in a while, so that might give me some motivation to do it. But there's different categories here. This would just be one example of kind of a way to test both strength and endurance with push-ups. So that's a nice option so that you don't have to think about getting yourself on a bench press and stacking a whole bunch of weight on the ends. So if you're wanting to get yourself warmed up, and then go ahead and try this push-up test, see how you do. Flexibility is our next component of physical fitness. So we have cardiovascular or cardiorespiratory component, we have muscular strength, muscular endurance, and then also flexibility. Thinking back to your elementary school days, perhaps you did the sit and reach test. That was the only one that I was not good at, and I always wanted to win, so I'd kind of cheat and throw my arms forward and push the slider on the sit and reach box. But that's a test of hamstring and low back flexibility. The shoulder flexibility test, you can see that pictured here. Perhaps you're sitting at your dining room table like I am right now and trying to see if you can get those hands to touch behind your back. My right arm comes much easier than my left arm. And I think that's the case with many people, especially if you're dominant on one side. But shoulder flexibility test is a great one to test for upper body flexibility. And then the mobility squat, this gentleman here in the slide, down low, looking like a frog who's ready to hop. For many people, we do a lot of sitting and our bodies have, I would say, maybe gone backwards with the idea of being able to support ourselves with our heels down, our hips open, and sinking low. If you take a look at little kids or babies, they sit like this all the time. They're playing in the sandbox, and when adults try to do it, it doesn't feel so good. Again, with these flexibility assessments, make sure that you're warmed up first, that you don't have any injuries, and try them slowly. But this can perhaps give you an aha moment into your own flexibility. Personally, for me, flexibility is something that I neglect more than other components of fitness, and I'm afraid it probably will come back to bite me as I get older and it gets a little bit harder to bend down and reach and have my muscles safely move through their range of motion. Body composition is the final component of physical fitness according to the American College of Sports Medicine. And this is, what is our body made up of? We have lean body mass, that is muscle. We have fat mass. We have water in our body. We have bones. Our organs take up a lot of space and weigh something as well. So, what is your body all made up of? You can get measurements in a lot of different ways for body comp, but I tell people to be cautious, especially with some of those BMI scales that you might see at a fitness center or other quick ways to measure body fat. There's definitely some considerations you need to obey before you start. Like, you need to be hydrated, you need to have not exercised, not eaten things. There's a lot of factors that can influence your body composition. The gold standard for body composition is hydrostatic weighing or underwater weighing. Air displacement, or the bod pod, is another way that you can get your body fat measured. Skin fold calipers and then bioelectrical impedance are four of the tests that, when done correctly and accurately, should be a good representation. It is important for us to have body fat. I don't know how many times I've told people who say, I want to be single digits for body fat. I want to be 8% body fat. Especially for women, that's unsafe. We need body fat. Body fat keeps us warm. It insulates our organs. It's actually our main source of fuel. So as you sit here watching this PowerPoint, unless you are on your Peloton bike right now, you are burning fat. You are not burning carbohydrates just sitting around. You're burning fat. It's our main source of fuel. So we need body fat. It stores and carries hormones for us. So a goal of very, very low body fat, while that might be what the media is telling us, that is unsafe for us if we want to have a healthy life. But we can still, try to be average or in the fitness category. And decreasing your body fat is going to be a combination of adding physical activity, especially strength training exercises, and making some dietary changes. That is beyond the scope of this class, and I'm not going to give you any recommendations because I am not a registered dietitian. But changing body composition is a goal for a lot of US adults, for sure. So knowing your body fat is definitely helpful just for a baseline. I would not want somebody to obsess over it and get their body fat measured every day. It's very hard for our bodies to change and lose body fat. If anybody has tried before, they know they might have some weight loss success, but then it bounces right back up again. There's a lot of theories behind that, but our bodies are trained to hang on to the body fat because they never know when we might need it again. However, when we overconsume on things like sugary beverages and fatty foods and huge portion sizes, and we don't do a lot of moving around, that's when the extra body fat accumulates. So there's a lot of psychology behind weight loss and body composition changes. And again, that's more than this class, but I do want you to know that body composition is a component of physical fitness. We do have air displacement at Concordia St. Paul, so if any of you are close to campus or ever want to come to campus, we can put you in the bod pod and get you an estimate of your body fat. Hydrostatic weighing is also offered at a lot of universities or other research facilities where you actually sit in a big tub of water and they weigh you and the mass of your body. You sit on a little ledge or a little shelf, and the mass of your body sinks down. The more fat you have, the more fat floats, the more dense your body is, the more you'll sink down. It's kind of scary, but also very fascinating. We also have skin fold calipers at Concordia, so I am happy to test anybody if they're ever curious about their body composition. Just let me know or let your instructor know, and we can organize time for you to come to campus. Let's switch gears just a little bit. We've talked about the 5 components of physical fitness, how you can measure them to get a baseline for yourself, and what types of physical activity or exercise might help improve them. Well, the fitness industry is always out there trying to make a buck. And more with social media and social media influencers, fitness trends and fitness fads come and go. The American College of Sports Medicine does a survey every year with personal trainers and fitness managers and people who are in the thick of things in the fitness industry about what they're seeing for trends. This will be one of your discussion boards for this week. The survey results from 2023 are going to be located in your course materials under the Week 2 tab or the Week 2 grouping. And read through the article to learn more about what trends are in, what trends are out, what are the top 20 trends for 2023, and why that is. I'm not going to give you any surprises. I want you to be able to read for yourself what the top 5 are for 2023. But here are some of the things that surprised me that's out for 2023 already. Online, live, and demand exercise classes. That was number 9 last year in the thick of the pandemic, and that dropped out of the top 20. I still continue to do virtual personal training and teach some virtual fitness classes. So to me, as a person who has some income from those things, that was interesting for me to see that that dropped from number 9 to number 21. Same thing with online personal training. Was that just a fad, or will that be a longer term trend? And then some new survey entries have come in, and some survey entries or trends have kind of fallen off the wagon. So as you glance through the research article on the trends, take a look at, the top trends, what's in, what's out, what's been around for a while, and think to yourself, gosh, am I doing any of this, or does any of this interest me? Questions to ask yourself about these fitness trends. What trends have you tried? Are there some that you're interested in trying? Maybe you've never heard about blood flow restriction training and you're like, that sounds very interesting. I'd encourage you to do a little more research on it. Maybe there's trends that you're like, no way, not interested at all. The fitness industry is fickle, and just like trends with clothes and trends with food and drink and Hollywood, things come and go. Pictures below here include the Shake Weight and the Thigh Master. I don't know if any of you were alive when the Thigh Master was popular with Suzanne Summers, but my mother certainly had one. It looks like a torture device, and my brother and I definitely did not use it to tone our inner thighs. I think we used it to play American Gladiators. So these trends, it's good for you to stay on top of things, but also to know, is this actually benefiting me, or is it just somebody trying to make some money? And if somebody is trying to make some money, how can you know that? That's where health literacy comes in. That's the second portion of our topics for week 2. Health literacy, what is it? Hopefully you're able to click on this YouTube video within the PowerPoint. If you are not, you'll also be able to find it in your course materials. It's just a minute and a half long. But health literacy really is understanding research, understanding the effects that things might have on you, understanding how to make decisions, advocate for yourself, knowing what kinds of questions to ask so that you can have the best quality of life. So if you are a person who is throwing money at every new thing that comes down the pipeline and your closet looks like, a garage sale that needs to happen, how can you be a little more health literate when making decisions for yourself? In addition to your 2 discussion boards for the week, you will have a health information literacy assignment. You will find that in the course content. Open up the folder. There are 6 literacy modules. You will watch the module. It's a little video or a little slideshow, and then you will write 3 or 4 sentences on what you learned from each of those modules. This helps to get you thinking about, where am I getting my sources from? How do I know if these sources are credible? What's a good starting point for me if I do want to do some research on a new drug that's come out, or a new fitness trend that's come out, or a new supplement that's come out? So this will get you thinking a little more critically, a little more high level about, yes, all these things are out here for fitness and health and wellness, but that doesn't mean that just because it's out here and being promoted that it's actually effective or healthy. So your health information literacy assignment will be 6 different modules. You will turn those in by Sunday at 7 p.m. A recap for week number 2, we talked about the components of physical wellness, the difference between physical activity, exercise, physical fitness, and what are the components of physical fitness. So cardiovascular, muscular strength, muscular endurance, flexibility, body composition. How can we test for those? How much movement should we be doing? Are we doing enough? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle. Maybe this class has motivated you or inspired you to get moving a little bit more. How do you make some informed decisions about your own health behaviors and the things you're consuming and the things you are purchasing? Making informed decisions by being health literate. Last week, you set a SMART goal for yourself to change a behavior. Make sure you are tracking those changes, whether it's getting more sleep and you're tracking that with a sleep app, or getting more steps and you're tracking that with a step counter, or cutting down on sugary beverages and you're tracking that with a food planner or just even in a notebook. Keep tracking those changes and keep planning so that you can plan ahead so that when obstacles and barriers come for that behavior, which of course they will, you have some tools to be ready to conquer those. If you have any questions about anything this week, please reach out to your instructor. And if you are close to campus and would like to do any of the physical fitness tests in our lab space, you certainly are welcome to. You can connect with your instructor or you can connect with me directly. That would be JMYERS, jmyers@csp.edu. Have a great week, everybody.